Hello, Indivisibles. I'm here to highlight something that is keeping me up at night. And I know this group really understands what I'm about to say. I know we're all focused on the 2022 midterm elections, and they are incredibly important. But we also have to look ahead, because you know what? Our opponents certainly are. Right-wing extremists already have a plan to literally steal the next presidential election. And they're not making a secret of it. The right-wing controlled Supreme Court may be poised to rule on giving state legislatures, yes, you heard me that correctly, state legislatures the power to overturn presidential elections. Just think, if that happens, the 2024 presidential election could be decided not by the popular vote or even by the anachronistic Electoral College, but by state legislatures, many of them Republican-controlled. But there's also good news in the face of this very real threat to democracy. Indivisible has launched Crush the Coup to make sure we're ready to defend democracy in 2024. They've put together a list of critical races in 6 key states and how you can get involved. Will you support Crush the Coup by donating to Indivisible and state legislature candidates? Each of these races is highly competitive, and your dollars could very well decide the winners and the winner of the next presidential election.
There's a lot of folks in the media that anytime, hold on, I'm answering exactly that question. Okay. There are a lot of folks in the media that try to, anytime a Republican is in front of a TV camera, try to say the election was fair and square and legitimate. You know who y'all don't do that to? You don't do it to Hillary Clinton, who stood up and said Trump stole the election.
They didn't storm the Capitol. They didn't try to kill my former
boss. Who said that the election was stolen. They sat here and said it was illegitimate, and you guys were fine with it. Okay, so it's illegitimate when Republicans win, but not when Democrats.
No, you know, here's the thing. We may not like when Republicans win, but we don't go and we don't storm. We don't try to change the... We'll go to court. We don't do that.
Did I miss an entire year of Antifa riots where cities across this country were burning and police cars were being firebombed?
I guess you did.
Your position is the left doesn't engage in violence? Really?
No, they wanted to noose our friend Mike Pence. Like, how do we make sense of that?
You just accused us of doing something we didn't do. You said Hillary Clinton didn't say whatever she didn't say. I'm saying to you, listen.
And she said it's sitting here, and you were fine with her saying it was illegitimate for Republicans to win.
She called Donald Trump the next morning, and she conceded the election, Ted.
Okay, took the call. As did Stacey Abrams.
All right.
She sat there while Donald Trump was getting sworn in.
Hillary Clinton says Trump is an illegitimate president. Hillary Clinton says the election is stolen from you. Hillary Clinton in 2002, George W. Bush was selected, not elected. Joe Biden, Al Gore was elected president. So Joe Biden claims George W. Bush is illegitimate.
Right? Or is it just you that gets to scream?
Okay, no, I agree.
Okay, then lower your voice, because we are very close to each other. And I know you come here to sell a book and try to pick a fight, but we're not going to do that today.
But Anna, then address the... Okay, you look at this January 6th committee, which I think is a kangaroo circus.
1 minute, and then I got to go.
The chairman of the January 6th committee objected to a prior presidential election. Representative Raskin, the lead prosecutor for the impeachment, objected to a prior presidential election.
Have you ever heard a room
the absolute hypocrisy?
Democrats say this president, we don't like him, but we're not going to do our job. They did their job.
As the book described, the Department of Justice went after Trump.
Thanks for Senator Cruz. His new book is Justice Corrupted, and members of the audience, you're getting a copy. I'm sorry. I was trying to tell you I had to go.
I
understand. Welcome to Burn Babylon Burn. This is not a news show. It's an opinion show. We encourage you to do your own research. We do not give financial, legal, medical, or any kind of advice. Now enjoy the show.
All right. That was, sorry about that. That was Hillary Clinton telling us that the Republicans are going to try to steal next time, and then Ted Cruz saying that Hillary Clinton obviously loves to do this stuff.
Well, there's a little bit more to it than that. So I don't know if you guys know the backstory to this. I don't know if you know the backstory to this bill that they're working on. But basically, all the bill that Hillary Clinton was criticizing, that bill just simply states that states can oversee their own elections, not the federal government. That's the basis. That's basically the sum and the full sum of what the bill is. The states can oversee their own federal elections. And that's what Hillary Clinton was attacking. And that's what makes it so hilarious, the way she twists it.
Right. Yeah, and the whole twisting things of the way that the View people just twisted everything that Ted was saying right in front of them, and then they cut him off as soon as they got their chance. But clown show intensifies. Welcome to midterms 2022.
Well, it totally intensifies. I love what Ted Cruz did. I think he's a little bit more of a warmonger, but we've talked before on the podcast about my theory with him. I think he just had to play to the political side. But there was definitely there's definitely a really interesting closing in the elections right now. Whenever it comes to Mehmet Oz and that guy that just had a stroke, I can't. George Foreman, what's his name again?
Betterman. Oh man, George Foreman's so much cooler. Anyway, we have a guest today. From episode 1.
Oh,
we have
true.
the Sicilian Chameleon. Welcome to the show, friend. You are a Pennsylvania resident, and so you're stuck between the two clowns. What do you think about this?
You mean Fetterman and Oz?
Oh man,
you said Fetterman and Oz? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Oz was throwing on us. I mean, it's obvious he's a carpetbagger.
Yep.
I mean, he was up Oprah's butt cheeks and all that network and all of that for decades, and I never thought much about him. I think his ancestry is Iranian or something like that.
Turkish.
One of the is it Turkish?
Yep.
Is it okay? I knew it was one of those. And I mean, I honestly, me personally, I'm not voting anymore. 2020, that was it. I'm not voting. There's nothing you can say to make me vote. You know, just I don't know if your audience knows the two clips you just showed proves my point. The clown show, the blatant lying, the fall of man antics, having the woman act crazy and say crazy stuff. So look at stayed a woman for decades. So as soon as I found out he was running, I didn't care. I just don't care. I mean, yeah, everybody's, you know, so I don't know anything about his other than when I see an ad that's against him. They threw one ad out here, was had puppies and a lab and mistreated, and it's probably true, but a lot of physicians and doctors. Fetterman, I mean, just look at him, listen to him. The man's not healthy. So the commentary for me is not what I think of these people, that they feel these are viable choices. And you see this pattern repeated over and over throughout the country. Well, Stacey Abrams down there in Georgia.
Oh, yeah, you guys are going to get me started on that.
So, I mean, they're doing the classic taste great, less filling. I mean, honestly, I'm just being honest. I mean, what could I say? Obviously, the pro-gun guy, the friendlier guy is going to be Oz. And I mean, they're throwing the same shit at us every year. I mean,
yeah, and when your pro-gun guy is Oz.
It's going to be painful, but still sit around. I don't really think we have there is no difference between these two because we know the pattern. Whoever gets in, they're going to do lockstep, whatever's best for both parties. So, I mean, what is Oz going to do? Go ahead, Mako.
Well, let me just say a few things. So a few different things on this one. One, I thought it was really interesting that he brought Jordan Peterson onto his TV show. It was like 2 or 3 years ago, and there's a red pilling moment that's happening right now, and it's a slowly progressing moment. Like I don't know if you guys followed Candace Owens from her very beginning. I saw Candace Owens when she first started hitting the circuit. She was back there called red pill black or black pilled red. Basically, she was a black girl and she became red pilled, and she started kicking up a storm because she started looking at issues more deeply. And then right around the same time, Jordan Peterson started hitting the airwaves, and that's what got a lot of young people, people in their early 20s, etc. I guess they'd be in their mid 20s now. Really starting to shift the way they conduct their lives and start being more responsible and different things like that. And Oz brought Jordan Peterson on. I don't think that was a mistake. I think if you were to look at Oz, he would not be, if you were to look at Oz like 15 years ago or even 5 years ago, you would have called him like a blue dog Democrat or something like that. But he's shifted a little bit more right. I'm not saying he's where I want him to be going, but I'm saying his mindset is moving in the right direction towards Second Amendment, but it's a progress. So essentially, we're taking kind of a classical liberal that leans left and putting it up against a full-on socialist commie guy who can't even speak right now. Which do we want in Senate?
I'm in
I'll be honest with you. It won't matter. It really won't. I mean, I've been looking at voting issues for 40 years, been voting for however many years I've been voting, and it's not going to matter. We're in such bad shape. This is the stasis that the system is keeping us in, thinking it's going to get better tomorrow. I mean, it's not going to get better tomorrow because we keep drinking the same Kool-Aid, and the tyranny and the regulations and everything is getting worse. I don't see any sunshine until we the people get dirty, and we don't want to get dirty. We want to be comfortable, and that's the bottom line. So for those of us who can see through this, I'll use the popular terminology, see through the matrix. I have to tough it out with you people who are blind. You just don't see it. There's no hope in this system. It has to change abruptly, and most likely, and I'm not saying how it would happen, will have to be a violent change. Until that happens, nothing's getting better. Nothing. Oz, I don't care where he was 10 years ago. I'm looking at what he is now. I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed by Fetterman. This is so weird. There was a time when men could stand up and be noble and look around and say, this is wrong, this is not honorable, and we need to get rid of this rubbish. That's gone. That's where we are. That is exactly where we are. We are a dead nation. What you see now, you have no idea what it was like in the 80s and 70s, for those who didn't live through that, and even the early 90s. It was, you could tell truth and people respond favorably. And if we had the mechanisms of social media back then, we could have dealt with a lot of corruption, but we didn't. Now that we have it, I think they created this internet and social media for one reason, and it's kind of backfired on them, and it's helped truth and God and a lot of things, which is positive. But at the end of the day, I will just simply say we have to go through some rough times. These rough times are not necessarily brought to us directly by the enemies. These rough times that we have to go through, most of the rough times that we're fighting against, I honestly believe is being brought to us by God. I was just reading some scriptures today that talks about that. God sometimes put his people in captivity because we're hard-headed. And those of us who call us Christians, whatever that means, those who follow Jesus, the Messiah, the Christ, that's our fault. I don't blame the Jews. I don't blame what's the other one? the communists. I blame the Christians of the world, and especially the American Christian. We've been asleep so long. We've swallowed Netflix. We swallowed NFL. We swallowed Disney. We've swallowed all these funky policies bringing in illegal aliens. We swallowed COVID scamdemic. And if we had just stood up and said no, if 10% of the Christians said no, what did we do? The Christians, they ran home and stayed home like a bunch of bitches. We're the men. So I'm a man. You're bringing me Oz? You're bringing me Fetterman? What kind of bullshit is that? And I'm supposed to sit there and be thankful? Like some sort of CIA mind op? You beat me, you treat me like shit, stale and weak and phony? I'm supposed to feel like I have freedom because I can choose one of these fucks? No, I'm not down with that. That's where I am, buddy. I'm done with this shit.
I hear you there. I hear you there.
This is nonsense.
But
I don't believe nonsense.
I follow you 100%. This is one of the reasons that I do. Yep. But let me make my little statement here. This is one of the reasons that I'm really annoyed with the Christian church in the West, especially in America, because the Christian church created a new list of rules and laws so that they could follow rather than living up to their full potential of what it is to walk in Christ and walk the kingdom out in their daily lives. They become robots. They become sheeple. They just follow everybody. They want to find a leader, but a true leader actually makes more leaders. And instead of finding a leader that makes more leaders, they find a leader that they can follow because they're too timid to step out of their square and actually try to do something new and try to forge ahead. And I can tell you from experience as an entrepreneur, it's not fun to try to forge ahead and try to create connections, but it's what's necessary to actually make a change. I'm working with multiple different people over multiple different fields to actually make something happen and to move forward. But that's the attitude we have to have. We cannot have a defeated mindset. We have to go, okay, we take this win here. We take a check. Hey, look, Roe v. Wade got overturned. It's being turned back to these states. That's a major win because now Roe v. Wade, now abortion issues are going to be governed at a state level. And that's closer to the populace. That's more of an area that we can control and we can stop babies dying. It's a process. And sometimes you have to take a little win over a big loss. And that's what the communists started through the colleges about 40 years ago. I guess now it's 60 years ago. It actually might be 70 years ago that they started pushing in their mentality. And for us, it's our chance to push back, but we have to have a long view, not a short view. The short view is we want to win. We want a major win tomorrow. The big view, the long-term view, is we need to take it one small step at a time. Let's flip Pennsylvania to somebody who's at least a moderate, classical, liberal, slightly pro-gun conservative, rather than taking on another full-on commie into the Senate. It's a step forward. It's not a ginormous step, but it's a small step.
The steps.
Say that again. You didn't come through.
Where's that scripture? It says, man makes plans, but God orders his steps.
It's at the steps.
See, the problem is what you're saying doesn't factor in God, and that's the problem. God orders things, and that's one issue. We have to understand that a lot of this bad stuff we see is being caused by God and his angels. He's directing his angels to do what we call, very clear, God does things that's evil to wake people up.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I think that what we're seeing here is that this is the end of the Babylon system. One of the reasons why we call the show this, and so the clown show intensifying. I think a lot of these midterms are going to be tampered with, but does it matter? I mean, we're not even getting quality candidates anymore, and it's like, oh, here's this enabling moderate versus a flaming communist that is going to just ruin everything. It's like what happens is, nobody's got the reign of this stuff. I mean, like, you try to primary out an incumbent and they don't go anywhere. And so you end up with the same people doing the same stuff. And why are we trying to salvage it at this point? It seems like we've got a few years before the 2030 agenda. And it looks like they're well ahead of time on us. They've outpaced us. They're probably at like 2027 right now.
But we can hit it in our stride. It's within our power to actually shift the nature. And once again, this is a reason why I get really annoyed with Christian churches.
You have no power. You have no power. You have no
that's
power.
The whole point.
You see, you have four suppositions. Suppositions and your foundations are based. You have no power. You have no power except that which is given to you from heaven above. You have no power in this world.
Exactly.
Until you understand that.
God's great.
You're just talking. You have no power.
God is the power. Me is not in vain. I know.
What's that?
God's grace towards me is not in vain. That's God's grace towards me.
That's not what we're talking about. His grace. You have no power except it be given to you by heaven above.
That's literally what the definition of grace is.
By Yahweh, you have grace. No power. That's not about grace. It's not about grace.
No. But
God gives power to evil people. God gives power and authority and means to evil people. To achieve goals.
Let me just say this one thing, but let's get off the theology of this. This one thing that's firmly believed, and I've studied scripture a very long time. For 10 years, I studied it 3 to 6 hours a day. God's grace is God's power working on your behalf. Paul the Apostle says, it is towards this end I toil, struggling with his energy that he works through me. That's what grace is. Grace is a power of God working through you to accomplish his purpose in your life. It is not something for us to throw it up and to wait for a check to come in the mail to figure out how to solve our problems. It is up to us, rather, to take the abilities and the gifts he's given us and to actually make a change in the system that we see a problem in. We have the ability to do it because he's given us his grace, and that is what grace is. It's God's power that is going to enable us to make the change.
So whenever the people were begging for a king, that's whenever we lost a lot of that power. The people were begging for a king, and God said, yeah, you can have a king, and it's going to suck. And that's where we are.
Exactly. And that's one of the key things about getting us back to more of a local government, because back then you had, I think it was 12 judges, but basically the 12 tribes more ruled over themselves. And I'm pretty sure this is probably where the founding fathers got that.
Yeah, we're kind of gotten away. You're kind of getting away from, you're talking about power and we're going to get power and politics. My point is that's all interesting, but that's not what I'm referring to. I'm basing it what you said earlier. The fact is they keep us with this mind fuckery of thinking they make a move. Look, the fact is that, and they don't sit and look at us and them. There's no us and them. It's all of us. Some of us are evil and some of us are more evil. Good. There's no good. Clearly only a heaven is good. All of us, we're less than good. Okay? So what I'm saying is that we need to realize that they keep playing these games with us, and we keep going with it. The concept of the U.S. Constitution is a nice idea, but as Benjamin Franklin said, it's what he said, the republic if you can keep it. We're not keeping it. We're no longer acting as a nation of laws. We've actually got people thinking that we're a democracy, and that's our form of government, and that's nonsense. I get people criticizing me and say, well, millions of people agree with me. Having numbers agree with one and having the majority does not make that morally right or right before God. It's not totally a numbers game.
Yes. democracy is two wolves and a sheep arguing over who's going to be for dinner. That's why we're not a democracy. That's why we're a republic.
I would say democracy is a man that doesn't know that he is subjected. He needs to be subjected to God's rule, and thinks he can make decisions that alter his life. And that's what you have. You have all these people running around thinking democracy, and not. You can't be a Christian and think be a Democrat, think in a democratic society. God is not a democracy. The Most High God in relationship with Christ, that's not a democracy, and the Christians haven't figured that out. Because
so we're looking
dealing with the. What's that?
So we're looking at a lot of people that.
Was that your dog? I heard it.
But it's fun. It's fun and human to get caught up in this and play these democracy games, because it's kind of just what everybody's doing right now, you know. And
democracy,
anyway,
in a nutshell, is who has the most power, who has the most money, who can brainwash the most people. That's practical democracy is the only democracy that counts. Whoever can be brainwashed, whoever can be bought, whoever uses the most force and military and police force. That's what democracy is. Democracy is not about them and giving you a choice. Look at democracy's bringing us.
And so, oh shoot, we lost him. But there's a bunch of agents out there right now that are working for some sinister forces like Klaus Schwab and George Soros, and so we're seeing those guys get in power. Of course, you know, just to root against the enemy, who you know is the enemy. I know that all of this kind of, you know, God put Schwab there for a reason. And we're supposed to deal with that, and how we're dealing with it is rather weak at this point. What do you think, Mud?
Well, but that's part of my point. It's up to us to push back, to be able to make it so that it can be put more into our hands. There was a good point that you started to make. I really like that point. Whenever the Jews started asking for a king, and they got rid of their judges, and they ended up with a king who ruled over all of them, rather than being centralized into groups of, you know, their 12 different tribes. And they lost a lot of authority. And, you know, yes, you know, you saw Saul. Saul was okay. Then he went a little crazy. Then King David came along. King David was pretty damn good for the most part. And then his son sucked. And then another one sucked. And then another one sucked. And so you're just always depending on this one man. And I think that's why the founding fathers took that into note when they made this country a republic, not a democracy, and they decentralized the government. They intentionally put Washington, D.C. in a effing swamp for a reason. They only wanted to make sure that we weren't invaded. It was supposed to be as minimal as possible. And then people started shifting it. Abraham Lincoln was one that, you know, really started getting the presidential stuff and, you know, pushed up there. And I get that, yeah, he was first Republican, blah, blah, blah. But he really centralized the power a little too much. And we need to start moving it back to the states. That's why I'm so excited about these midterms elections, because in these midterm elections, it's the first time that I've seen a midterm election where people are actually excited and engaged about it on a large, massive scale, because that's the good thing. We're not talking about the ruler of the U.S. We're talking about the person that's in charge of a state, the person that's in charge of a district. And I think that's a really good thing to start decentralizing that power.
So, well, we have that message set up in a certain way. But it's set up in a certain way for a reason, and those people do have an inordinate amount of power over our personal lives, and they get to make decisions for us, and that's supposedly why they call it democracy. But they're making decisions in lockstep with this 2030 agenda, and so we can see their agents littered about. And I'm in a solid red state that is probably gonna stay red, but I can see that they're trying. I'm in Texas, and I kind of just want to, in a way, send a message that they'll never get a foothold here. But I don't know about that. We've had some really bad judges, especially in the Houston area. Have a terrible mayor. There's a bunch of terrible mayors throughout Texas, and then you've got all the major cities are run into the ground. They're turning into crime-ridden hellholes at this point.
Yeah, and that's I think I think maybe it was Ted Cruz or somebody else. They were trying to go after at some point, saying like, oh, all these gun crimes happen in there's a lot of gun crimes that happen in red states. And then I can't remember who it was. It might have been Ted Cruz or somebody else, but they pointed out, it's like, yeah, it happens in the blue districts in red states. It happens in all the cities that are governed by Democrats. So, like, your policies don't work that well. You strip gun ownership rights away from certain people. The criminals still have guns.
Well, they've done a little more, or a little less, and they're just enabling a lot of these Democrat policies in a lot of places. That really the Republican Party is not a bulwark against their insanity. If they are, they're pretty well failed at this point. But at the same time, we've got this, and what's leading into all of this is a big thing that's going to be on the agenda next is apparently a lot of Democrats are losing faith in their nuclear war that they're trying to provoke over in the Ukraine. Have you heard about that?
I'm so excited about that. So there's right now everything's literally being shaken up. I listen to Scott Adams every day, and one of his frames is, and this is one I've used in my life multiple times, if you're in a situation to where things just aren't working out, where everything's kind of like where the situation's broken and you don't see a way forward, you take the box and you shake it. Right now, the box is being shaken on multiple levels. One of the reasons that the Ukrainians are able to hold on to the ground or retake some of the ground that was lost was because of Elon Musk and Starlink. And then now we've got these rhinocons when it basically Elon Musk was basically his company SpaceX was basically spending $20 million a month to keep the Starlink stuff set up so that Ukraine could use it so they could still have internet sources. Now, I can't remember, it's not Dick Cheney, but it's one of those guys. Now there's McCarthy, I think is one of them. They're basically being like, oh, we should be able to nationalize you because Elon Musk is like, if you guys aren't going to come to the negotiating table, I'm not going to donate this Starlink anymore for free. You need to start not necessarily making it so I make a profit, but at least I break even. And then so now there's the Rhino Republicans are coming out against Elon Musk saying we need to nationalize Starlink. And Elon Musk's response is basically like, Boeing and all these other companies are making money when you buy weapons from them. Like why should you nationalize me and nationalize Starlink, but still pay these weapons developers massive tons of money to send missiles over there? And so Elon Musk is one who's basically shaking the box. It's really funny the Republicans, like the more not rhinocon Republicans, but even Ben Shapiro today was talking on his podcast. He's looking at the new stats for the vaccines, and he's basically saying, if I had known what I knew now about the vaccines as I did 2 years ago when I took 2 vaccines, I would not have taken them. They did not help me because he took the vaccines to protect his parents. But now he finds out that it didn't do anything for his parents. And he's like, there's
he also told his audience that they should take the vaccine whenever he took the vaccine, and that was the sensible thing to do. And really, once you inject that stuff, there's no takesies backsies, And so that's, it's really unfortunate in my mind on that. It's, even Jordan Peterson and others who have taken the vaccine, I'm just like,
But Jordan Peterson regrets it. There's a lot of people that they took it to do certain.
Everybody that took it is going to regret it at some point, or they're just going to die suddenly. So
true, but possibly true. This is not a medical show.
Right.
Take your advice from
obviously,
but
disclaimer: no medical advice.
My point is that right now, what I find so interesting is the box is being shaken on so many different levels, because essentially, like what Vinny was complaining about, it doesn't seem like we have any good option, but certain people have the ability to make a choice and make a difference, like actually make a difference for a lot of people. Like, for example, Elon Musk, like I said, he's pausing. He's looking at the situation in Ukraine. He gave a reasonable suggestion, and he got hammered on all fronts for the reasonable suggestion. So he basically said, you know what? I've been giving this to you for free, and it's been costing me $20 million a month. Start paying up. And that's his form of shaking the box. And that's why Trump, one thing Trump did as the great negotiator in his properties, he would always shake the box. If there was not anything in the situation that worked out for him, he would insert a different factor in there and change the whole dynamics. And that's what's happening right now in Ukraine. That's what's happening in these midterm elections. There's a lot of different things that are shifting right now, but I think it's really wrong to take a black pill at this moment. I think we've got momentum, and we need to keep pressing in.
I think that whatever happens, that they're going to get their agents where they want them to be, because they've proven in the last one that they can do that. And now I think they're going to do it and say, what are you going to do about it? And we'll see what happens, but I really think that that's how it's going to go. It's going to be a bunch of World Economic Forum agents, anybody, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, because they do own Republicans too. It's going to be a lot of World Economic Forum agents, and they're going to get the positions. So that's just what I think is going to happen, at least. If you want
I
to
hear
know.
you there. My message is, don't lose hope. Gird up your loins and put on your armor and get moving forward. So, but yeah, I just think we're in a situation where we can actually continue to press forward. There, you're back. I was trying to fill the space. But yeah, I think we're in a position where we can keep. Yeah, I think we're in a position where we have an advantage and we can keep pressing forward. I think it was Glenn Beck or somebody else that mentioned this. A really interesting thing that a lot of the Republican candidates have promised is they're going to get rid of the new IRS agents. Get rid of that bill if they win the Senate and the Congress, and basically stop the new IRS agents coming on. And I think that's where we need to hold their feet to the fire. If they don't follow through on that, if they get a big enough win that they can do that, and they don't follow through on that, we need to identify the ones that aren't following through. I think that's one of the biggest ones. And I think that should be the target, and should be something that we seriously target and hold them accountable. If they get into the elections and they don't get it, we need to start making those phone calls, being like, I'm going to make sure that you're not in there if you can't keep this promise.
Yeah, the IRS thing, the whole agenda there is to punish the productive, and that's something that's coming up. Anybody that's doing something, they want to take what's yours. Now, let's see. We have another music video. Tom McDonald this week. Came out last week, but I hope that you've already enjoyed it this week because it's a great one. And this is about all of those people that may or may not be voting or deciding or thinking that they're deciding or whatever the heck they're doing. They're just following orders or following somebody else because they're sheeple.
Humans been controlled since the day that they were civilized. The truth has been so heavily politicized. If you don't know who's controlling you and killing all the little guys, find out who you're not allowed to criticize. Black folks who were never ever actual slaves, fighting with white folks who ain't actual Nazis, controlled by rich folks who use the news to make hate, while elite folks control other political parties. It's a big lie, trying to make you pick sides, trying to make you burn the cities down and kill each other. They got sick minds, big lies, keep on the police so that there's big crime. To take away our freedom, to restore order, they let die. Play with people, turn men into women, make the counterculture mainstream to mix up the system. Change the pronouns, if gender is a spectrum, so is privilege. I know poor white folks and black celebrities with millions. They starve you with a lack of information and only give you facts through a branded corporation. Distort your worldview with an algorithm that changes based on propaganda curated for your engagement. We can't be free, can't have no peace till we're on the same team, but y'all are sheep. Glued to screens, just part of the machine. Y'all are sheep. What do y'all believe? Oh, my sheep. Nothing's what it seems. Hollywood been rotting your brain, controlling your mouth. You say lit, fleek, bet, cap, they trying to dumb you down. They endorse whatever narrative is popular to shout and use minorities in movies for diversity clout. Two sides on the spectrum, but ain't none of them honest. Took the red pill and the blue pill, spit them both in the garbage. Being woke used to mean you understood you're a target, and now it's having two good legs and never taking a step forward. If you agree it's free speech, disagree it's hate speech. Erase it if it came from anywhere except the mainstream. Trump supporters labeled as the racist, but that can't be. Lincoln was Republican, and that's who ended slavery. Science been politicized, it's easy to see. A mask became a symbol of which side you believe, but you'll never cure a sickness till you cure the greed, because the problem with our natural immunity is it's free. Society is broken, want you locked inside a cubicle, addicted to pornography, liquor, and pharmaceuticals. Tell you that you're fat and poor and you were never beautiful, then tweet how much they love you when they hear about your funeral. We can't be free, can't have no peace till we're on the same team, but y'all are sheep. Glued to screens, just part of the machine. Y'all are sheep. What do y'all believe? Oh, my sheep. Nothing's what it seems. If they can't convince you, they confuse you. They want you dumb or dead. They divided you by race, religion, income, and sex. Made everybody right and left. The hatred got so intense. If the other side likes oxygen, you'll put a bag on your head. And the conspiracy theories labeled as misinformation is just a terrifying truth that scares the hell out the nation. The system treating you like trash and you got rifles to aim with. Just imagine how they'll treat you when your guns get confiscated. George Orwell, 1984 was his last lecture. George called them thought police. Now we call them fact checkers. Government surveillance trying to catch you. They don't ask questions. Mass incarceration equals capital for cash investors. The system isn't broke, it's working fine. Oppressive and chaotic is how it was designed. They say if we ain't doing nothing wrong, there's nothing to hide, while their agenda and intelligence completely classified. They don't teach you rights in school, you never learn them at all, cause they're easy to remove if you don't know what they are. The only people you can rule are the criminal ones, so they force you into corners till you're breaking the law. We can't be free, can't have no peace till we're on the same team, but y'all are sheep. Glued to screens, just part of the machine. Y'all are sheep. What